Well, I think Dig This was one of those shows that, when you're a trainee, that's where you put the newbies, if you like. Dig This, it was simple, it was basic, it was a 15-minute program, it was quite structured. So, in those days it was part of the general and special interest department, which I was then in, so that's kind of where you started. Over 2 or 3 days you'd shoot 4 or 5 programs and then into the edit bench and make them. And I was fortunate to be around just at the beginning of when we started to record it with molded cameras. I was responsible for building the Dig This garden at Avalon, because we decided there had to be a better way to do it than shooting it on film, and tape was just arriving. I think it was also in a period of television where those kind of informational shows, which were quite simple, straight information, people still watched them. Television was a different kind of beast. It wasn't strongly commercial. There weren't the same kind of commercial imperatives, and there wasn't there wasn't the sort of the competitive nature in the programming to the same extent. So you were allowed some leeway. I remember the characters, just the great people, because Country Calendar was about telling people stories about people in their environment, and just the great locations. It's a bit of a cliche, but that farming community is the sort of heart and soul of the country, even now probably. So to be connected to that and be able to tell those kind of stories, and the disciplines of going out and turning around a program every couple of weeks. Just a great people and a great production team. So I learned a lot through that period. When you're a young producer director with ambition, Country Calendar was the show to work on. It's a bit like the farming sector. There's a whole sector of the community which have great stories to tell, and they're part of the fabric of the country. So Kaleidoscope was in the same way that Country Calendar was the rural sector, the arts sector was embodied in Kaleidoscope. And there were some great people, some great directors, really making some really strongly creative television. And I think that was partly the attraction as well. It's sad that it's gone and it's not available, but at that point television had evolved and become much more commercialised, much more focused on audience and ratings. And I think, it suffered from, the breadth. It didn't draw the breadth of audience that was being looked for at the time. Again, showcasing New Zealand expertise and New Zealand innovation. That was its whole purpose, was to say, New Zealand has got all this expertise and there's innovation going on, but nobody knows about it. Again, there's a vision that New Zealand is at the forefront of the agricultural sector, but there's a whole sector of New Zealand. And when I think now about what all the drivers are in terms of the new technology, innovation, the new kind of New Zealand, and I look back and what would it be now, 30 odd years ago, that we were making a program about it. It's interesting that we don't. I was thinking just the other day, we don't have that kind of program anymore. Again, I was fortunate I was in the right place at the right time. Tom Scott had come up with the idea. It was decided that TVNZ would make it in-house. So, I got asked would I produce it. So, collaborating with Tom to create that series was just one of those opportunities you don't get very often in your life. It was a challenge to shoot it, to take Hillary back to the places, where we'd experienced some of those things. It just gave me that program gave me a far greater awareness of who Sir Edmund Hillary was and the kind of man he was. Quite a remarkable individual, and so humble with it. I learned quite a lot about, you can achieve a lot and still be humble, and I think that, I guess people say it's a bit of a New Zealand characteristic, and that may be a bit of a cliche, but I think there's an element of truth in that. In the first America's Cup, there was a host broadcaster, so I was only really responsible for the television New Zealand coverage. So the actual race footage was being delivered to us. So I've been, I was fortunate that, we were making the highlight show every day and doing the news coverage and putting our own commentary, and, we were pioneering the 3D animation. So it was a somewhat easy introduction, because I could observe what the people who were doing the host broadcast coverage were doing and learn from what I thought were their mistakes and take the positives out of what I thought they were doing well. One of the hardest broadcasts I've ever done was when New Zealand got eliminated from the Louis Vuitton Cup final and we still had 3 hours on air. and had to stay on air and wait till the boat got towed back in, and then went live from the dock when they returned. I mean, that was kind of tough. Much easier to do in '95 when they'd won and we could fill the 2 hours with celebrations on the way back in. It can be quite hard. You have to actually be quite disciplined. And yes, you do sit at the back of the control room when they're losing and going, but you've just got to grit your teeth and get through it. And this last cup, was particularly difficult. New Zealand are 8-1 up. The core of my team were all New Zealanders. We really wanted New Zealand to win emotionally, but we had to say to a team of 100 people, we're here to showcase this for the world. You have to set all that aside. Finally, for sailing, there was a way for the viewer to go, they're ahead, they're behind. Where they are, they're going faster, they're going slower. So the creation of that animation with the work of the, what was then Animation Research Limited. I mean, they did all the hard work. I just sucked at it and made it work on, my job was to make it work on television. Their job was to make it work technically. So it was a real groundbreaker at the time, and has been a fundamental part of live sailing coverage anywhere in the world now. Even if I haven't been involved, or even if the Virtual Eye guys aren't involved, every major sailing event now has some form of animation to show where the boats are. What we wanted to do with both of those programs was to show the New Zealanders that how much effort, how much emotion is involved, what has it taken for the New Zealand team, for Team New Zealand, to get to that level, to show the people behind it and the dramas and the tensions and the passion they have for it. Because you've got to humanise it. People relate to people, they don't relate to a boat. We set out with a deliberate strategy in 1995 for the Cup that we wanted New Zealanders to be able to name all the sailors on the boat in the same way that you can have debates and arguments and know the names of all the All Blacks. Most New Zealanders can tell you who's in an All Blacks 15, but they couldn't tell you who was on the boat. So it was we were determined through the '95 campaign that it's about human. These are sports stars. These people, they're athletes. It was initially a challenge. I hadn't had any involvement in the Olympics. I'd worked on the Barcelona Olympics back in New Zealand, producing the studio end of it. So it was a whole new world to, if you like, a leap of confidence to say we can do this, we know how to do this, and basically just putting our money where our mouth, or our mouth where our money was, really. My philosophy has been it's all about storytelling, and so our whole sell to the Olympic people was previous Olympics there's lots of nice shots, but you didn't understand what was going on. So off the back of what we'd been doing with the Cup, we think we'd had quite a bit of success in bringing an audience to sailing, and so we tried to carry that through to the Olympics. But it's a challenge because you arrive only a few days before it starts, so you don't have a lot of time to get up and running. You don't make television to win awards. You make television because you're passionate about making television. But to be recognised by your peers, and particularly in the American sports market, their sports Emmys, to be recognised, as a New Zealander, having come out of New Zealand to be involved in a project that's recognised as being up there and as the equivalent of and as good as, if not better than, the best that the American market can deliver with all their technology and resources, you just feel very proud. I had a good friend who I'd known for quite a while in Australia who had the franchise to do the international versions, the non-American versions of The Amazing Race. And he said, hey Dennis, look, this is great, do you want to come along? So I ended up doing 3 seasons of The Amazing Race Asia and The Amazing Race Israel, and it's, just staggeringly challenging programs to do. You survive on very little sleep. I've had planes break down and people get behind, and somebody was meant to go to Matakana in the north and they got sent by a local to Matakana Island rather than, and you're still up at 3 o'clock in the morning waiting for a team to finish. We had a very simple challenge in Auckland the first season where we wanted to send them across to Devonport. We just wanted to buy some time because a lot of it's about time management. And we just wanted to buy some time. So there's a Pahutakawa tree over there with a rope swing. So we just wrote a simple clue, make your way to Devonport, find the girl on a swing. You could go across on the ferry, get off, it was just on the left, you get almost back on the same return ferry. All the teams came across like sheep. The first person went right, they all went right into Devonport, and it took nearly 2.5 hours to find this girl, which of course then puts the whole of the rest of your challenges. So you're suddenly having to light challenges you didn't think you'd have to light. You know, I've been in the car printing off clue copy, racing, putting up a clue box, printing it off, chucking it in the clue box, literally as the first team's coming around the corner.